welcome to Ireland on the Fly. Just like to tell you all there that we're getting there. Thank you all for your patience, and I've been getting some really good feedback from a lot of people that they're happy that the show is back on the road. Another bit of feedback I got, a big shout out to Keith Nicholson from Tunbridge Wells, who kindly sent me 3 debarb stimulators with a little note on them to stick them in my jumper. So anybody who listened to when Jackie was on last week, you might know about that. But I have to say they're really nice flies. So this week we're back on salmon. We're joined by Brendan Garland. Brendan is a salmon angler from Belfast, and some of you might know him through his social media channels. He does a bit on Instagram and on YouTube, and we'll discuss a current project he has on the go there, which is very interesting. 365 takes, that's really good. We'll go through a lot. It's great. He's very analytical, and we discuss that with him, how he goes through everything and how he changes things and looks at things. So it's really, really interesting. Hopefully you'll enjoy Brendan, and there's a lot to be garnered there. So this week, once more for the salmon episode, Gareth is here alongside me. So before we talk to Brendan, Gareth, any update on your salmon season so far?
Evening, Tom. Yeah, update, but no silver to the bank yet. I haven't tried that hard because the situation just hasn't really afforded itself. Conditions just haven't been right. I had a kind invite to fish the syndicate water on the Owen Moor and Cara Moor last week. I was over there for a couple of days. There was simply not the Owen Moor was on his bones. Like when it has water, fantastic.
Was it?
River, but was
completely on its bones, yeah.
Slippers, yeah. And then conversely, on the same week where we were going to fish Cara Moor, flat cam, sunshine, just it didn't work out for us on that. And then here on my home river here on the Moy, we are just in that limbo state, in that East Mayo, where the best upstream fly water is mountain fed. So that's effectively spatey. That has been too low for fly for the last spell. And then our other low water hunt, the Moy fishery, the Cathedral Beat, the Ridge and the like, is too high because Lough Conn is still very, very high. It's nearly at winter levels, and that's feeding the lower levels. So I'm in that limbo. Too low for East Mayo, too high for the Ridge. And I'm just hoping to...
Is that normal, actually?
No, it's not. We just, Con is unnormally high at this stage. Going back from my old records, I had the first fish off the Ridge pool, I think 3-4 years ago. And that was on the 4th of May. And that was on the fly, easily fished on the fly. A little bit highish on end, but easily fished. I was in Balna today looking at the Ridge, and it's just coming about nice for fly now. So I'm in on it, I think, at the weekend. So it's coming right.
You got to be looking forward to it, are you?
Oh, totally. I'm itching to go. It's starting to feel fishy now. It's starting to feel fishy, and I'm hearing from different fisheries along the river. There are a few fish starting to lie up, and there are some fish being caught.
Actually, I meant to ask you there, but going back, when you're on Cara Moor, has there been anything on Cara Moor, actually?
I definitely know one chap who has landed a fish. A couple of fish tumbled and bumped. I haven't spoken to my spies out there this week, so I don't know. The conditions have been wrong, Tom. When the winds are coming, the winds are northerlies with a cold bite in them. And
who are you telling? Look
hey, yeah, you know all about it, sir.
Sorry. I look at my face. Because a north wind, what are you're blowing, you're facing the sun all day. Conditions have not been good.
No, but it's getting there. It's getting there. I'm hearing of fish holding.
Yeah, you did mention, and when we talked to Brendan, you did mention that there have been a couple taken on the Moor.
Yeah, there have, and I'm hearing
anywhere else. Have you heard of anything else along the west coast?
Yeah, I heard a few off the Blackwater. The last time there was water on the Owen Duff, the part who were on it at that time had fairly good fishing, but then they haven't had water in 3 weeks now. Galway Weir, yesterday was the first day that it was really fishable, and they'd 3 springers landed yesterday on the Galway Weir. One on the fly, one on the shrimp, and one on the spinner is what I heard. So yeah, I think it was 4. It was 12 gates 2 weeks ago. It was 4 last week, and it was down to 2 at the weekend. So it's just fishable. So hopefully there's a few fish starting to hold up now. It's looking better. I
love what you say. And you encapsulated there. It's beginning to look fishy.
Yep, yep. We just have to get one and get the photo.
Yeah. Well, look at hopefully it'll all go well for you at the weekend, and hopefully I see the weather is to switch a bit to more westerlies and southerlies for us. So I think if we get a bit of nature back in the weather, fingers crossed, it'll improve.
And as we are, the eternal optimists.
Yeah, always and ever. So enough of this optimism. Listen, so we'll join Brendan now. So look, I just started off and I asked Brendan how his season has been so far this year. Have you been out yet this year?
I have, Tom. I have had a couple of days on the Mourne and a couple of days on the Finn. Conditions haven't been conducive to salmon fishing, really. I haven't had an awful lot of water in the last few weeks. It's too low for places like the Finn. It's still too high for places like the Ridge Pool, which is where I'm going this coming weekend. I did lose a fish on the Finn, a good double figure fish.
Oh, wow.
So I had a bit of excitement. The fish came around to me 3 times, turned on its side, and then it disappeared. And the air naturally was blue. And I've been so upset about it, I can't even look at the video recording. I'll wait till I get a fish, Tom, before I go and look at the tape.
Yeah, I was about, you can't actually face it to look at that tape.
No, I cannot. No, I was heartbroken. But sure, I think you get one chance of a spring fish. In my experience, you get one chance of a spring fish. And I've been lucky enough in previous years. I've landed the fish this year. I haven't yet. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, Brendan, great to chat to you again. I bumped into you numerous times over the years. Always enjoyed bumping into you, particularly on the Moy and on the Ridge. And we'll put our heads together, and between us, we'd normally wangle a fish or two or learn some new tactics. And it's great to have a chat with you. Sorry to hear that you lost your first springer there, but what you just said, you're going to be on the Ridge this weekend. I have my first outing on the Ridge this weekend too. There hasn't been a fish landed on the Ridge yet this year. The gods might just strike. We might just do it. So I'm betting on you. I'm betting on you.
Who knows, Garrett? Sure, we'll maybe sort it out between us.
One of us. I don't care. Once it's either you or me.
Come here. So, Brendan, do you normally go to the Ridge this time of year? Would you normally go down that early?
Yeah. What I tend to do is I tend to hedge my bets a bit, Tom. You can never be absolutely perfect. Or sorry, absolutely on the button with conditions. So what I tend to do is I tend to book a few days on the Finn. I book a few days at this time of the year on the Ridge Pool. I have my kind of traditional dates on the Ridge Pool in kind of late June and mid-July. The last few years, I have taken a day or two in May. If I don't think the Ridge Pool is going to work out, I might look out to the lake out at Carramore and see what's going on there. Look at the winds. I have a couple of good contacts down there who keep me right in relation to that. So yeah, the spring fishing, I have looked to the Ridge Pool because typically that's an option, and that's an option always to keep in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Well, for the record, Brendan, I was in Ballina today, and as you know, anytime you cross the bridge or stop at Paddy Bonner shop, you have to stick the head in and have a look and have an analysis. I reckon at the minute it's about an inch or two over the top of the stone of the fly marker. So, plus that'd be maybe about 12 inches off the fly only mark. Good, decent flow coming down. Water is clear. We get no major rain between now and Saturday. Punching a good long line with some degree of sinker setup should be able to fish it.
And are they seeing any fish, Garrett?
Two buddies of mine, you probably know them. I think John Smith, John McKinley, the boys were fishing it last weekend, and they saw a couple of fish running ahead of the tide. So I think there were fish pushing through rather than fish lying up in it. John Howley said to me there was a gentleman fishing it last week, and he said he got a pull. But nothing further than that. But there are some fish starting to hole up and starting to be caught now in the upper reaches. Gannon's fishery had 2, one on Sunday, one on Monday. The first 2 fish of the year, both caught by prawn fishermen. And well done, chaps.
Absolutely.
David and Peter, both of them went back. which is well, and it's well
Very
done.
good.
Congrats to the boys. I know
Very
the couple
good.
off the Foxford fishery in the last couple of days. And I think there were 3 off East Mayo last week. East Mayo's way too low at the moment. It's down about
Yeah, that's
0.35,
what I thought.
0.36. But
Yeah.
look, they're coming. There are some coming.
Yeah.
And I
And Garrett,
saw.
tell me, do you think the pool has changed over the years?
Yeah.
Certainly, the fish don't seem to be as keen to hang about. Now, I don't know whether you agree with that or not, or maybe it's just fewer fish around, but that's what I'm hearing.
Bit of column A and a bit of column B. As you know, Brendan, you know the pool very well. You know how to fish it. You know the characteristics of it. I know a bit about it myself, but I saw it last year before it was called off for the high temperatures and the warm water.
Mm-hmm.
I was guiding a lady, and we were up at the top of the pool, the weir pool, fishing down into that hold,
Mm-hmm.
and the tide was rising. The pool was very low, and there were buckets of grills bursting by us. Normally I would have expected those to be lying in the ridge, but they were just bucketing through. You'll hear different theories, particularly from the locals and lads who fished it off. And when the footbridge was built up above, there were cofferdams put in for obviously to allow for the construction. A lot of the lads claim that the different direction of water flow, different water pressures has gouged out different areas, dropped silt and sediment and rock in. It's not, well, look, it's not a very deep pool, even up in the highest part of it. Below the first initial flow where it comes in on the far side of the flow, that's where I reckon is the deepest hole in it. But then after that, in normal height waters, you'd be fishing no more than 6 foot depth really the whole way down through. So yeah, it's not really, I don't think it's as much a holding pool as it was in previous years. I think they're coming off the tidal. They're meeting their first real belt of freshwater, and I think
Freshwater.
hang for a bit just to turn from their saltwater mode to their freshwater mode. So yeah, I agree with you on that. It is different changing characteristics, but every year after the floods, the flow is different. Like last year, a lot of the main flow was coming down closer to the left bank. This year, I've yet to fish it, but as I said, I'll be on it this weekend. It looks like more of the flow is down through the middle and over to the far side. Oh, hey, look at it, like every year, it brings new surprises. We might have to relearn it and see. Once there's something there to fish for, I'll be happy.
Yeah, it's a puzzle, and it's an ever-changing puzzle.
Well, it's interesting, Brendan. You obviously think that it has when you're asking the question. Do you know?
But I do. Yeah. I do, because I've been fishing it. I've been fishing it for 20 years. I only started salmon fishing 20 years ago, and the Ridge Pool was the first place I fished for salmon. I was a big golfer, and we were down fishing one of the western courses, and I came through one evening, and we were staying in one of the inns in Ballina, and I lifted a leaflet, and it said, "Come and fish the Ridge Pool and catch a salmon." And I thought, well, why don't I do that? And I think it took me 7 or 8 years to get my first salmon from the Ridge Pool. So it wasn't it wasn't just that easy.
But you haven't stopped, though. Once you got the first one, you very much got the hang of it very quickly.
That's the thing. And what I will say is, look, the Ridge Pool isn't for everybody, but it is one of my favorite places. And I feel the excitement and the adrenaline every time I arrive in front of it, because you just know you're in with a chance.
Actually, can I just actually touch on that though? When we get back to it again. So your first foray into fishing, into angling, was straight from golfing into salmon angling.
Yeah, no, that my father would have taken us out the odd time when we were young. Okay, so it's not like I didn't fish, but I never fished for salmon. Okay.
And what did you fish for when you were young?
We grew up in Belfast during the Troubles, and it wasn't that easy to get out. But Dad would have taken us out maybe perch fishing out in Glenavy River, and you'd have picked up a perch or a trout spinning on little nets. And then he bought me the first fly rod. I think it was only 8 or 9. And we went out to Stonyford Reservoir. And my first night ever fly fishing, I got a lovely trout. And people would say, well, that should have started you going. I think I put the rod away and I never fished again until I was 45.
You put the rod away when playing golf.
When playing golf. And
Sinful.
the the saving grace for golf with me was it wrecked my back. So I had to stop it and find something else to do. And in the job that I was doing at the time, I was doing a law degree part-time. I was in the 5th year, and I thought, I'm going to have to find something that I really enjoy doing. So ending the golf and starting the salmon fishing was where it all started. But it was just 20 years ago this year.
Wow. And you know, isn't it amazing? I'm just going to say it, the power of a leaflet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We don't see leaflets lying about anymore. I mean, if you don't go to the right place on your phone or on Facebook, you might never discover that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes to show, because it's all geared towards social media now. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan, if I may comment on something that strikes me as your style of fly fishing and your approach to fly fishing, is you're very calm, very sanguine, very chilled, but more so you're very analytic and clinical approach. And I have seen it at times down there where lads are saying, oh, the pool is dead, there's nothing happening. Where Brendan could walk down, fish, 20 minutes later, fish. You'd be one of the few lads who are able to read and adapt and do something different and get the read and get the results. And that's why I hold you in such high admiration. You're not afraid to break the mold. You're not afraid to do something different. And as you see, for you, a man who only took it up 20 years ago, you've taken the fast track route on it. You're up there with many, above many and most of other anglers that I know.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm not an expert in salmon angling. I look to guys like you guys to learn, okay? And I still do. And you will always find someone on the river that you can learn from, okay? I've been lucky enough in my life to have gathered skills incidentally to what I've been doing. So I am an analytical thinker. I studied geography, believe it or not, whenever I was at college. So I understand hydrology. I understand meteorology. I can look at rain clouds and analyze them. I can see where rain's going to fall, where it's falling at the moment, where it has fallen. The computer science makes you methodical in terms of what you do. So, and part of it as well is by being methodical, particularly when you get to my age, you tend not to forget what you should be doing, okay? Because you've got a pattern. every year that passes, it becomes more difficult to remember what you should be doing. But yes, I do take a methodical approach. I always start off, for example, on any river I go to, particularly rivers that I fish regularly, I always start on the same tried and tested method. So, for example, on the ridge pool, when it's at fly only, I'll put a floating line on with a 1.9 inch per second sink tip, a good long leader, and a couple of small flies, like really tiny flies is what I would start off with. Maybe start off with a 12 or 14. And I take a run down, and if nothing happens, then I drop a size, and then maybe go to 14 and 16. And typically what I use there is maybe a Black Francis or I tie a small Cascade variant with a bit of green in it. Just a nod to the Mayo, because I know Mayo fish like green. What I do tend to do as well, and you'll see this come across in the vlogs that I do, I'm always thinking about how the fly should be moving in order to keep the fish interested. So a fly that drifts across the water naturally will attract a certain amount, but one that moves all the time, one that's pulsed, one that is maybe retrieved more quickly using a figure of 8 retrieve, or slowed down by doing an upstream mend, or quickened up by doing a downstream mend. Those are the sorts of things that you might try if nothing else is happening. And the other thing, and as an aside, I would always recommend that people go to somebody like yourself, Garrett, or somebody like yourself, Tom, and get a lesson, okay? because getting the fundamental building blocks right at the beginning is really important. Yeah. After that, there's no substitute for time on the water. And you were kind enough to say that I do take an analytical approach, and I do. But part of that has been learned by time on the water. I was lucky over the 20 years that I mentioned to you that I was semi-retired, so I was able to go fishing whenever I wanted. I have a very supportive wife who will question me if I'm going to work, but she won't question me if I'm going fishing. So I'm really lucky that way. So the ridge, that's an example of the ridge bill, but I might take a slightly different approach if I arrived somewhere and the water was really big. One of the things that anglers need to be careful about is arriving somewhere like the ridge pool and talking yourself out of it because the water's too big. And my attitude is, if I booked the venue and I've gone to the venue, I fish the conditions that I see. Okay. So if I arrive at another river and I think, well, this is bigger than I thought, well, then you'll start your approach perhaps using a variation of the method you usually use. So you might go for a heavier tip, you might go for a bigger fly, you might go for a heavier fly, and you'll try that down the pool first, and you see how that goes. So analysis doesn't start and stop on the pool that you happen to be fishing at a given time. Analysis has to be happening all the time. You have to be thinking about, okay, well, where might fish next week? Where's the rain coming? Where is it going? If I set aside next Tuesday, where should I be focusing on? So that analysis carries on at the riverbank and away from the riverbank.
I like your style. I do. I like your style. That works. Where else are you intending to hit in the next week or two? Or are you going to wait and see where the rain comes?
Well, I wait and see. I have a couple of bookings again on the fin towards the end of the month, and that's really just to give myself a last chance of that elusive springer. The fish should theoretically, if you look back at recent years, the fish should start to arrive on the Mourne, for example, in the next couple of weeks. They typically arrive after the first flood, after the middle of May. That's when they'll arrive in numbers, and that's when they're more likely to run the weir there at Sandmills. The water temperatures will have got to a stage where the fish are able to cross the temperature barrier. So I penciled in a few days just in case there's an opportunity to do that. You kind of relax a wee bit after the 1st of June because you've either got your springer or you haven't, and then you can then take a more relaxed approach to where you might fish, and you have more choices because the fish are more through the system.
But yeah, it's kind of like, that match is over. You can't worry about that now. You have either won it or you lose it. So not a lot you can do. I'm just going to harp back to the analytical point. What you were saying there, I think it's fascinating. I think you said one very good point is, now of course it's kind of different, I suppose, let's say on the ridge pool when you have the day booked, but when you arrive at a place and the water is too high, where you still will persist. And if I could put that in a trout perspective, I often heard Joe Crane saying it here, that he always admired the lads, let's say, who came down from Dublin or came up from Munster to fish the Corrib, because what had happened, he said, if it was a bad day and conditions weren't suited, the locals would go home, and they wouldn't fish, whereas the guys who traveled would persist and they'd say, well, I'm going to try something that might be different and might work. It's very interesting. You harped on that, if you arrive somewhere and it's a bit high.
Yeah, and that's a really good point as well, Tom. And I got to touch on this. I've been really lucky. Like not everybody would have had the opportunity to travel the way I've traveled. So I've been really lucky, and I fished in places where I've learned a lot. And I've learned to fish in big water in places like Russia, big cold water. Okay, because and look, I have been in circumstances where I've arrived in a place and I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm just back from New Zealand. My daughter got married over there. I fished the Tongariro, and I fished up on the South Island as well. I was out of my depth. I didn't know what I was doing because it wasn't a fishing holiday. I just grabbed a few hours when I could. If I'd have been doing it seriously, I'd have taken a guide. But the point I'm making is, I had no reserves to draw on because I'm not a trout fisherman. If I arrive at a venue, as you say, and the conditions are different from what might be ideal, I draw on the experience that I've had and the lucky experience that I've had fishing in other places. And I've learned to fish in big water. I keep myself physically fit so that I can fish in big water. And I think as a result of that, you have more arrows in your quiver whenever the conditions are against you.
Mm. Well, for what it's worth, when I went to New Zealand, I was lucky. I was there for 5 weeks, right? It took me a week to get a handle of it. Okay. So were you doing it on, just a bit and almost incidentally? Yeah.
I did get a lovely fresh rainbow and it made it worthwhile, but I was out of my depth zone. Yeah.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan, you touched on there that you've been very fortunate to get to fish in far-flung places and some fantastic systems. And would you care to give us a quick run through on your favorites and what you liked most about them?
Yeah. So the first opportunity arose for me back in 2011. It was a 50th birthday present for me, and I went to fish the Karlovka. And it was late July, and the water was the lowest it had ever been. That was challenging. It was challenging for all sorts of reasons. I did come back with a personal best of 16 pounds, and that was one of the bigger fish of the week. So it was a tough week. What did I learn from that? I learned resilience. Would I go back there? I'll come back to that at the end of the story. Okay. After that, I bumped into Charlie White at Roxton's, who were running trips then to Kitsa and Barzuga. And I fished Kitsa and Barzuga from 2014 to 2019. And it was like having Falkus's book open in front of you and seeing everything that Falkus talked about was happening in front of your eyes. Fish lying behind rocks, fish lying in front of rocks, to the side of rocks. And of course, the runs there were unbelievable. You couldn't not catch fish if you were reasonably proficient. And the the Barzuga and Kitsa, I have very, very fond memories of those. In 2017, as well as fishing Barzuga, I fished Yokanga. And I was able to fish Yokanga because there was some issue arose with the ice break that year. The ice broke late. I got a deal because I couldn't do it. I mean, Barzuga was expensive enough. Yokanga was beyond my capability, but an opportunity came up and went to Yokanga. We had a really good week there. I had my best ever fish there of 23 pounds. I think the one thing I'd say about the Yokanga is you need to be physically fit. Up until 2019, I had my best every year on the Barzuga in 2019, and we were booked onto it then 2020, 21, and of course COVID came, and things changed with Ukraine, and that's not really an option anymore. So I looked then again back to Charlie White. Charlie White of Roxton's is one of the guys I trust unreservedly in terms of if you want good advice about where to go to fish, speak to Charlie at Roxton. And he suggested the Rangas. And Garrett, I know you fished the East Ranga last year, and I saw some great photographs that were sent to me shortly after you came back. I fished West Ranga in 2024, and I fished East Ranga last year, and they're two fantastic rivers. It's getting expensive to fish in Iceland, but here's what I'd say to people. Put a few quid away every year, and if it takes you 10 years to save to go to one of those venues, then do them. And the East Ranga and West Ranga are certainly at the moment, my favourite venues. East Ranga, both rivers are a little different. The West Ranga is entirely predictable. Okay, it's constant, clear water, good flow, plenty of fish, very easily weighted. East Ranga is an exciting river. I think on balance it's probably got the better water, more variety. And certainly last year we had fewer fish, but bigger, fresher fish. The one downside of East Ranga, and look, this happens everywhere, is conditions. Okay. Mm-hmm. Whereas West Ranga, you will get away with heavy rain for a period of time, or bright sunshine for a period of time, because the water is the river is so consistent. East Ranga has one complication, which is water comes in off one of the tributaries from the glacier, and that can colour the water up. If the water stays blue-green, you're okay. The fish will take. If it goes to milky tea, you're in trouble. And last year, we were unfortunate last year one day because our beat roster that day meant that we were lower down in the river. And had we been booked higher up in the river cleared more quickly from the morning, and we had a better time. So we lost a day there. But some great fish. I've had some great fish on the East and West Ranga. So those are all favourites, Garrett. It's difficult to separate any of those out.
Can I ask you something then, Brendan? You talked there of the phenomenal rivers with lots of fish. So when you come back to Ireland, fish in Ireland, so first of all, I'll ask you, has it improved your fishing capabilities in Ireland? And if so, if it has, how?
So, I think when you're away, you have to fish. Well, you feel you have to fish because you've paid for it. Typically, you've paid good money to fish it, and you fish the conditions that are in front of you. Okay, and there's another element to bear in mind, and this is where I come back to you two guys, and you know this from guiding. Okay, you have an expert guide at your side whenever you go to these venues. So these guys are there day in, day out. They've seen every condition possible, and they know when what to do when the conditions are right, when the conditions aren't right. Okay, so you learn from that, and you're able to take what you learn from that and apply it back home. So, for example, spring fishing here. It's interesting. It's interesting to learn that fish will react differently in cold water than they will when the water warms up. Mm. And there have been studies done. I think it was a guy called Jensen in Norway who did a study and was able to show that salmon don't really move to their full capability until water temperatures rise above about 7 degrees. Okay, and what we saw that play out in places like the Varzuga and places like the Okanga and even in Iceland. Okay, and I'll give you a few examples. So in the Varzuga, when we go to Varzuga, there are two rivers: there's Kitsa and Varzuga. Kitsa is lake fed, very cold, stays cold for a lot longer than Varzuga. So we typically would have been on Kitsa for the first 3 or 4 days. Water's really cold, and you're fishing heavy lines, big flies, and you're letting the fly come around onto the dangle. Okay. What we noticed was when we went over to the Varzuga, as soon as the temperature rose above 7 degrees, you were getting fish on the swing. So you were able to come up higher in the water, higher in the water levels. Okay. You were able to use floating lines, not so severe sink tips, and smaller flies. Okay. So you transfer that over to home, spring fishing. Okay, and I've seen this. I've seen situations where people are kind of scratching their heads, why am I getting any fish? And you go in and you fish a pool with a big fly and heavy tips, and you get a fish. But you'll get a fish because you understand what's going on, and I've been able to bring that back from my travels. Conversely, I fished, for example, that year we went to Carlofka, the water was really low. We learned to fish really small flies, long leaders, floating lines, and we were getting good sized fish on that. A good example of this is a further good example is the West Ranga. Now, unlike the East Ranga, the West Ranga has a camera at the falls. Okay, so you'll see every fish come up, but you'll also be able to see the number of fish coming through the counter and look at the water temperature when that's happening. And what you find is typically those rivers hover around 7 degrees. Okay, when the water temperature goes down, even in the high season, the number of fish coming over the falls reduces. Okay, whereas whenever the temperature comes up above 7, the number of fish going over the falls increases. And you can see by the catch returns on given days how that's actually playing out. So that's an example, Tom, of what I've learned. The other thing that I've learned, it comes back to time on the water. Going away and fishing those venues, you need to learn to cast over both shoulders. Like I'm not an expert caster. I can get the line out, but that's all you need. Once you've done your basics, once you've got your lessons, and spent your time in the water, that should get you to a proficient enough stage where you can cast. But one of the things that I've learned by traveling is the necessity to cast over both shoulders, because you're paying so much money, you want to maximize the amount of time that you're spending productively, and there's no point in going to those places if you can't take advantage of whichever side of the river you're fishing. So those are just some examples, Tom.
Yeah, well, I could see that. Consequently, coming back then, your ability to cast over both shoulders comes in kind of handy.
Yeah. The other thing that it's taught me though is patience. Okay, because look, let's face it, the numbers of fish coming into our systems these days aren't what they used to be. Okay, and one of the things that I found when I went away was you're fishing maybe 14, 16 hours a day. You're casting, and you know if you keep casting, that eventually you'll get a fish. And that kind of travels with you as well.
Yeah.
Well, as you said there, when you're fishing for 12, 14, 15, 16 hours, it leans to casting ergonomically and casting effectively. You'll be able to last those longer hours if you're doing it right, as in letting the rod do the work and making everything effective and making everything ergonomic. Yep, makes a lot of sense.
And Tom, one last thing that I've learned again through, but both, I suppose, both fishing here and abroad. One of the only things you can do with dropping numbers in salmon fishing is to try to stack the percentages in your favor. Okay. And how do you do that? And part of that is looking at the weather. Part of that is looking at the river heights, and we're lucky these days to be able to go on and look at the measurements online, and what heights the river at and whether it's rising or falling. That helps you increase the percentages in your favor. Being able to cast reasonably well, and then knowing a bit about your lines, getting your rod and line and tackle balanced, and knowing a bit about what flies to use, what size the flies to use, water temperature. I always take the water temperature before I start fishing, and I will typically adjust the size of the fly that I use dependent on water temperature, and that's another thing that I brought home with me from foreign travel.
It's really interesting, actually. And I thought of it earlier on, and I'm able to ask it now again. So you were on the fin and you were on the Moy. Was there much difference in the water temperature between the two systems?
So up until, I'm going to talk generally, right?
Yeah.
Up until probably maybe the beginning of May, the waters in the northern part of the country, I find, don't heat up that quickly. And as you know, last year certainly, maybe the year before, and a little bit this year, we've had a lot of northerlies, and that keeps the temperature down. Okay. I haven't checked the Moy this year, but what I have found is sorry. So going back to the fin, when I arrive and take the water temperature, if the temperature is below 7 degrees, I put on a big tube. If it's higher than 7 degrees, then I'll move to normal single fly.
Mm.
After about the 1st of May, and particularly when you move in the grill season, then you're much higher in the water. The temperature, the temperature will obviously dictate the fly size, but you're far more likely to be fishing high in the water with really small flies. The Moy, what I have found with my summer fishing on the Moy is that certainly up until last year, we were fishing in temperatures of 18, 20, sometimes 22 or 22 degrees. And that's what drove the tactic of fishing really small flies. That has changed, as you know, because the guys have introduced a new regime where the fisheries get closed once the temperature rises above 20 degrees. And look, that's fine. I'm 100% catch and release. I have no difficulty with a man taking a fish, but rules are rules. And if the guys say the fishery's closed, well, the fishery's closed. So in that regard, you're still talking about up to 20 degrees. You're still talking about flies, maybe 14, 16, 18. But what you're more likely to be fishing, particularly from June onwards, you're more likely to be fishing warmer water in the Moy than you are up in the Spade Rivers.
Right.
I just checked it today. The Moy is hovering just shy of 11 degrees at present.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's been steadily coming up. In the last month, from the start of May, she's been over 8 degrees. And I've been just waiting for conditions to come right. But between one thing and the other, I was traveling a bit, and it's gone too low for East Mayo and too high for the Ridge, because Loch Con is still very, very full of water. It's still a big sump.
That's interesting, Garrett. So, like, you're talking, it actually has gone up 3 degrees in a fortnight.
Yeah, it's crept up.
Yeah.
It has. Yeah, very good. I think it was 10.9 today.
Wow.
And where is she? I had it open here. Yeah, it's gone up from 8.5 from the 15th of April to 10.9 today. Yep.
Wow.
And that's still cool enough for the time of year.
You'll know if you have a hole in your waders, you'll know how cool it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll find out quick enough.
And Tom, that's another thing that I've learned from fishing foreign places is that I always have plenty of thermals on, no matter what it's.
I must say that's a very good lesson.
Absolutely.
That's a very good lesson. Brendan, tell us, you do a blog yourself as well, do you?
Yeah, but that's nothing serious, really, Tom.
Can I just cut you off there for a second, Brendan?
Yeah,
You're being a little bit too humble on that. You're saying it's nothing serious. What Brendan is doing at the moment, he's posting online a salmon take a day for the year 2026. So in effect, this is telling us that this man has a minimum of 365 recorded documents of salmon taking his fly and him hooking, maybe landing or not, we don't know. But that's a serious achievement. So I wouldn't downplay that, Brendan.
Garrett, I hope that's the case, because in all seriousness, the viewers have as much of an idea as I have as to whether or not I actually have those 365. So keeping my fingers crossed, because I've had the odd hard disk.
Okay, Garrett, run this whole 365 things by me so everybody listening will know.
It's a big ask.
So what is it, Brendan?
I started using a GoPro camera back in about 2012, 2013. Okay, and I used to have it on all the time when it was with me. And one of the problems with fishing, particularly the Barzuga, was after a while I stopped using it because all the fish looked the same. And also bear in mind, social media wasn't what it is now. And what I was thinking was, well, nobody's really interested in watching this stuff anyway. So I kind of put it away. I did a little bit more in 2015, 2016. But 2 or 3 years ago, I got back at it seriously again. And there's a couple of things I'd say about the GoPro. People may look at me and say, well, what does he think he's doing and all that. The camera is a really excellent teaching tool. Okay. Not only that, it prolongs your day's enjoyment. So if you're lucky enough to get a fish in a day or a couple of fish in a day, you come home, you upload it, you look at it, and you learn from it. Okay. Because, and I'll ask this question to your listeners. When you hook a salmon, do you really always remember what you were doing at the moment that you hooked it? And one of the interesting questions, people have been very generous and very supportive with their comments. But one of the questions, a lot of questions I get are, you struck there. You're not supposed to strike when you get a salmon. Why did you do that? You move the fly a lot. You move your fingers a lot. You rock the rod a lot. And I wasn't really conscious of doing that until I saw it on the video. So I use a thing called hindsight, which means your camera is always running 30 seconds ahead. Okay. So as soon as you hook, you can say, GoPro start recording. It banks the 30 seconds that you have, and then it starts recording. Okay. And one of the things that I was conscious of was when I went on and looked online at what other people were doing, and I really enjoyed that. Typically, what you tend to do is scratch through the video. So you'll get the take and you scratch through it and you'll have a look at the fish feed. So what did that tell me? That told me that the most interesting bit is the take and maybe a little bit of action in between. So working on that basis, I decided that I'd look and see what material I had, and I'd set myself a challenge. And part of the challenge was to keep my mind occupied over the winter, but also to see what interest there was out there in this idea of just showing the take. So I posted earlier today, take 132. So this is the 132nd day of the year. And I've managed so far to post 132 takes. Now, what I will say is they will get better as the year goes on, because I've been using a lot of my legacy videos in order to get me up and running and to kind of get me through to a stage where I felt more comfortable that I was going to make the 365. The later videos will be better quality, and I'm saving the bigger fish to later in the year as well. So I'm really enjoying. Yes, that I remember now. The other thing that it helps me to do is stop that death scroll that you tend to do. You go on to Instagram or TikTok and you just scroll, and before you know it, you wasted another. Whereas now I'm editing the video, I'm getting it all together, I'm posting it on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, and it's keeping me occupied, answering guys' questions, following people. So it has helped me with that as well.
I tell you what, also, what I have been using looking at your videos, Brandon. Yes, I've noticed. I love the way you work the fly in accordance to the flow, as where a lot of lads will just chuck a 45 degrees upstream end and that's it. But what struck me most with yourself is not quite the word strike, but I've noticed you don't feed line at all. You just kind of fish, lift. Where historically myself, I nearly 99% of the time I always feed the loop. And you've got me thinking now, because I was religious, if you lift straight away, it's not going to happen. But I'm looking at you, you're hitting them fairly early and you're hooking up. So it's very much made me think now.
But here's what I'd say in relation to that. Okay. I think it all works at different times. And what I have found is, and if you look at the videos, you'll see this. Whenever I'm working the fly, whenever I'm in contact with the line, and whenever I'm in contact with the fly, when the fish takes and you pull straight into it, when the fish takes, rather, you know the fly's in its mouth and you can pull straight into it because you know the line is tight, and if you pull 9 times out of 10, you get it. There are a number of videos, and I do hold a loop. I do try to hold a loop of line, and you'll see there are a number of videos where I'm more patient and I let the fish take. But typically, that is more likely to work if you have a big long line out and it's coming around in a nice big sweep. And there was a video I put on maybe yesterday or the day before where you can see clearly the fish takes a way left of where you see the fish, sorry, way left of where the fly line is. Mm-hmm. So it has hooked itself on the swing. But yes, Garrett, you know, if you read people like Falcus, they say to hold the line and all that. It's one of the advantages of having the camera because you can see what actually is happening.
Yeah, as you said, we're never done learning. There's no such thing as always, and there's no such thing as never. And it's everything can be proven wrong.
Yeah, it's really good. What is where are you posting those videos?
So I kind of use YouTube as my repository. Okay.
Right.
Interestingly, I don't get as many views on YouTube as I do on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Okay. There are whatever it is about YouTube, the other platforms, and it could be because maybe people typically use their mobiles whenever they're using the other platforms. There are certainly more views, and look, some of the videos get more views than others, and it's difficult to say why. Sometimes I think it's just because of the words you use. Maybe people are actually searching for something else and stumble across them. But look, I have been pleasantly surprised at the interest and at people all over the world sending me questions and asking for advice. And look, I enjoy that as well.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Brendan, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the weekend. It's coincidental we're both on the ridge for this weekend. Looking forward to having a catch up with you. And you know, we've nearly hit an hour at this point now. So I'm going to ask the big question this week, Tom, if you don't mind.
Fire ahead, please do.
Out of the memory bank of God knows how many fish you've hooked with your recording, can you tell us now what is your most memorable fish on the fly, Brendan?
I have given this some considerable thought, and I remember reading Kingsmill Moore's book, and he has a chapter in it about lost fish. And one of the things he says is you don't always remember the fish you landed, but you always remember the fish you lost. Okay. The problem with that is nobody's interested in hearing about a lost fish.
No, we've had a couple. Not many, but we've had a couple.
I know. So I decided there are a lot of memorable fish that I've lost, but I decided to talk about a fish that I landed. Okay. And look, this wasn't the biggest fish I ever landed, but it was the most exciting, is what I would say. And it was last year, Garrett, on the East Ranga. Okay. And I was really lucky to have Matt Solon as the guide.
Matt is a legend. The lads that Matt on here, Matt is just, you just couldn't ask for better.
A friend of the show as well.
Yeah. And it was our first afternoon, and I'd got a good fish early in the afternoon, and then he took me, it was about 3, took me down a bit, and I had a lovely R8 spey rod, and it was blowing gale. And one of the things Matt says was, even in Argentina, he says, you will not experience wind like this because it's coming in the wrong direction, coming right into our faces. So, cut long story short, I was casting out with the R8 and it snapped. And the only thing I had with me was a Gale Force 12-9 rod, and I'd never fished it before. Didn't know what it would be like. So he said, look, come up here. And he took me back up to the top of the beat. And I told him this. He guided me to this fish. He took me out into the middle of the river. And he showed me how to get the line out against the wind with the Gale Force. And he said, try to go as close to the far bank as you can. And I cast out. And I would say about 3 seconds after the line hit the water, there was a boil. and he let a gulder out of him because he saw it before I felt it. And you can see this is on my channel. You can actually see this, right? And then the rod bent, okay? And there were a lot of expletives. You can hear us howling and a lot of expletives. And you'll see Matt come into the picture, and he kept on saying to me, "There's a ledge behind you, get back up onto the ledge." But I couldn't. What he was trying to do was get in front of me. And then midway through the fight, he said to me, "Oh," he said, "this is a much bigger fish than I thought." So look, it was probably, it felt longer than maybe the 6 or 7 or 8 minutes that it was, but finally he netted it. We got a photograph, and it is the most beautiful fish. Now, it was about 83 or 84 centimeters. It wasn't the biggest, as I said, it wasn't the biggest fish I've ever had, but it was bright silver.
Yeah.
And you'll see it at the end of the video on my channel. So that was certainly the most exciting fish I've ever had, and part of that was down to the guiding, Matt's reaction, and the photograph that he took, because he's skilled, obviously, in taking photographs. He made me get the rod out of the way, and he got everything out of the way that shouldn't have been there. And we got a good photograph. So that's the fish I decided to talk to you about.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. That's one of the many fine fish, Brendan. And thanks for reliving that with us. I was there. I'm with you. I'm on the bank with you. I know B3. I know Matt, and Matt doesn't get excited too often unnecessarily.
I hope nobody's offended by the language. That's the only thing I'd say.
Yeah.
No, that's lightness. Didn't hear a word of it.
It's acceptable. There's a certain always acceptable. Yeah, Brendan, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. Really great to have you on. Really great. We'll get the links from you for your Insta and YouTube, and we'll post them up on the social media when we post this show. So listen, been absolutely fantastic talking to you. Really good. Really enjoyed it.
Look, Tom, I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the podcast. One of the things I'll say to you is part of my issue with salmon fishing is I have to jump in a car and drive for 2 hours to get to the venue. And I save your podcast for those trips because I really enjoy it, and it kills the journey for me. And I'd highly recommend it to anybody who wants to listen. So well done, you fellas.
Thanks, Brendan. Cheers.
Thanks, Brendan.
All the best, guys.
Our thanks to Brendan for joining us on the show. Don't forget to rate, review, and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Plus, you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com, as well as on Instagram and Facebook, to hear more about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.